right, so the presidential debate is over, and Donald Trump had his clock cleaned by Kamala Harris. Now, it's not just me that's saying that. A flash poll by CNN done after the debate shows that 63% of Americans thought that Kamala Harris won the debate, while only 37% of Americans thought that Donald Trump won the debate. Now, looking at this poll, unfortunately, we can't look really deep into this poll due to the fact that we don't have any crosstabs right now. So hopefully there'll be some crosstabs that we can look at. It wasn't a huge sample size, but it was enough. I think it was about around 650 to 700 of a sample size. Good enough, especially for a flash poll after a debate and especially late at night. Anyways, of those who watched it, as I mentioned, 63% said Kamala Harris won. Now, the important thing about this poll is two things. One, it said that it polled registered voters. It didn't say it polled voters that were undecided. So this means if it's just registered voters, a decent chunk of those who are actually supporting Donald Trump in the election said that Kamala Harris won the debate. Now, are there people who are maybe, kind of skeptical Trump voters? Could this have swayed them to the other side? Possibly. We don't know yet. We have to wait for some other polls to come out to see if there's any credence in any of this. So I'm sure a lot of the polls coming out afterwards are going to ask, did you watch the debate? Who did you think won the debate? And did the debate change your mind? No, those are really three good questions to ask. And the Washington Post did something in which they asked people who were undecided before and then afterwards. Kamala Harris did see a shift in those people. So if we look at the numbers, post or pre-debate, there were 12 people in this Washington Post survey, or I guess you can just call it like a little focus group. 12 people who were probably voting for Harris and 10 people who were probably voting for Trump, with 3 undecided. At the end of that, there were 10 people probably for Harris, 15 people definitely for Harris, so that's a gain of 3. 3 people with neither or undecided, and 6 people with Donald Trump. Now, what's most important with that number is that there was no one that said they were definitely voting for Trump. So of those 12 people that were likely to vote for Kamala Harris or probably vote for her, she shifted a lot of them into the I'm going to vote for her. So that really goes to the mobilization aspect of this. She might be able, through this debate, to mobilize her voters more, and they're more likely to vote. Now, one other thing about the poll that I want to talk about from CNN is that it is of registered voters. And as I have mentioned time and time again on this channel, if you look at registered voters, those polls are more likely to be skewed for Donald Trump than of likely voters. Once it changes over to likely voters, then Kamala Harris usually does better. So in this situation, we might even see a tiny bit more of a preference toward Kamala Harris. It might be like the 67-33 poll we saw with the Biden-Trump debate previously, though the results were flipped, obviously. But as far as my opinion of the debate, I thought she handled herself quite well. I think the first question she had and the way she answered it, I was a little bit worried because it reminded me a lot of Joe Biden. It was like, she got up there, she was a little nervous, and all she was doing was trying to list things. She's like, oh, I got 15 facts and figures I have in my head, and I need to make sure that I list them. And I was like, oh shit, please only have this happen at the beginning. And she went ahead and listed those. I was like, damn. But then after that, she got into her own skin. She was able to be who she was. But the most important thing, she got into Donald Trump's head. They worked this perfectly. They know that Donald Trump is just a narcissistic mental midget. And they knew, just say something bad about him. Talk about how daddy gave him his money. Talk about how he did this, that, or the other. Talk about his crowd size, because he friggin' can't stand that. And then he's going to spend the whole entire time talking about that and then go over to something about like people eating their dogs. Like, I really think the the takeaway from this debate, the one thing if anyone watches it, and if the Kamala Harris people were smart, it's the people in Aurora, Colorado, or Springfield, Ohio, are like eating their dogs. That was good. That was good. And she's just like, really? Come on, you want to talk about extreme? And that's what I think. As far as Kamala Harris is concerned, she's trying, as I've mentioned time and time again, she needs to win young voters, moderate voters, Hispanic voters. She, I think, worked quite well with the moderate voters. I don't think there are any issues that the other two groups really could glean from this debate. Donald Trump really worked on the base. That was it. Now, this might show maybe more problems in the Trump campaign than we think, because there was a report out that Trump has pulled out of 3 states that he knows he's not going to win now, New Hampshire, Virginia, and Minnesota. They have pulled out of those states. I mean, when Joe Biden was the nominee, they were on the attack in those states. Now they've pulled back and now have to be on the defense in some other states. So could this debate shift it even more, that all of a sudden Donald Trump might have to say, I don't know if Wisconsin, if we can stay there, we might have to sacrifice Wisconsin to save North Carolina, Georgia, or Arizona. That could be a say, or maybe solidify Pennsylvania. Okay, the electoral map is looking smaller and smaller and smaller for Donald Trump. It's coming to the point where he has to win almost everything, whereas Kamala Harris needs to win 2 things. And Nevada, if she wins Nevada, and then one of those 3, if she wins Wisconsin and Michigan, Nevada, and then just either Georgia, Pennsylvania, or North Carolina, game, set, match. It's over. It's over 270. I think she moved a lot in this. We'll see how it does in the polls. We haven't really seen many bumps in the polls this election, with the exception of when Kamala Harris became the nominee, or at least became the candidate, or the likely front runner to eventually become the nominee. Once Biden dropped out and Kamala Harris was being polled, she was the one. That's the only bump that we have seen in the polls. Since then, they've been pretty stagnant. Does this change the game? Well, the numbers so far look good, and I think what this does is it's now solidifying Democratic votes. If Democratic voters are much more energetic to go out and vote, then all of a sudden you start seeing Kamala Harris. Because at the end of the day, polls, and people have mentioned this in the comments and all, polls don't matter, focus groups don't matter, anything like this. It who turns out to vote, that matters. And if Kamala Harris's people are a lot more motivated to vote than Donald Trump's people, Kamala Harris wins. All right, I just wanted to talk about the post-debate poll that came out, and just a little bit about the debate and the focus group that they had in the Washington Post. So I will see you later. Have a wonderful day. Bye-bye.